All right, guys, good morning. Today we're going to be reviewing We have our measurement training. It's very applicable this week, especially because our BCBA students have a measurement quiz this week. So we are doing measurement training. I hope this information is useful for your exam. We will see, I guess. All right. Measurement training and what we're doing here, guys. Well, what I've written here is the process of applying quantitative labels to describe and differentiate objects in natural events. So what are we doing here? What are we doing when we use the word measurement in our work?
I think we're labeling behaviors and then
I was just gonna
assigning
say
like assigning a number to it
measure.
and then graphing the number and the time over a period of time. I want to say it like that.
Yeah, we are identifying behaviors that we're interested in changing, and we want to make sure that we have this scientific approach to behavior. We're not going to use the qualitative language, which is very subjective, to measure our VIP's progress. We're going to make sure that we use these quantitative numbers, so we kind of leave the opinion out of it, out of the equation when we're talking about measurement. And we really want to show that what we're doing is having a positive effect on behaviors, whether it's reducing maladaptive behaviors or strengthening skill acquisition behaviors. We want to make sure that what we're doing is actually having those effects on the behavior. So that's where our measurement comes in, that we are recording upon behaviors and that we are graphing it and we are showing that what we intended to do is actually what's happening, because it's going to help guide our practice. If the data is showing things aren't going in the right direction, it's time to reevaluate. It's time to talk to your BCBA again. It's time to start changing some interventions, so that the behaviors do move in the correct direction. And we want to make sure we're very effective in our work, that we're making meaningful change. So that's what measurement's all about. Oh, I should make this very big. There we go. So measurement in ABA. It's three steps. We want to identify the behavior to be measured. We want to define the behavior in observable terms. And we're going to select an appropriate observation and data recording method to record upon the behaviors. So the first set of measurement strategies that we're going to be talking about are continuous methods. And why do we want to make sure we understand what continuous means when we're talking about these methods? What are we thinking about?
Johnny here behind me said ongoing.
Yeah, it's always tracking.
Yes, ongoing. Who said that?
Shauna,
Shauna, great answer.
Barbara
It's
and Shauna.
ongoing. It never stops. This continuous method is always in place while we're servicing the VIP. So, what's really important that we consider when we're talking about these continuous methods? Why would we choose a continuous? I mean, it's the most. It'll show us the most um, up to date, accurate information about the behavior. So that's one of the reasons why we would want a continuous method. But when we're working with VIPs, their family, staff members, what would be very important to choose a continuous method? What do we need to have?
Behaviors that occur when when they are in and with the families when they're not with you. So you might want to track something that, is happening when they're with you, but it's more frequent at home or with parents.
Okay, yeah, so we're gonna pick this method that if behaviors are occurring in certain environments, we're gonna pick these methods. What's another reason?
Like the availability of time,
Yeah,
resources.
yeah. So resources, right? So we want to make sure that the data recorder actually has the resources to record these continuous methods. Because remember, the continuous methods never stop. We are always in place. So if we choose a continuous method, we need to make sure that the person that's recording has the resources to record. Because we are asking them to constantly be recording. So if they have other responsibilities like a teacher or a parent, maybe cooking dinner, these continuous methods might not be the correct choice for those kind of environments because they might not capture every instance of the behavior. And when we look at discontinuous methods next, you'll see that there's always a break in recording, that there's always going to be some type of break that is offered to the data recorder so they don't have to continuously record. So we want to choose these continuous methods over the discontinuous methods because they're more accurate and will show us much better results on our graph, much more accurate results. But we want to make sure that the data recorder has those resources to be able to record. So let's talk about them. Anything else about continuous methods before we look into them? Okay. So the first one we're going to talk about is rate. And rate is the most common method that we would use if we choose a continuous method. And what we're thinking about here is the number of responses per unit of time. Another word for rate is frequency. And in our work, we use these terms interchangeably. Rate is frequency and frequency is rate. Now on Central Reach, it's a little different because on Central Reach, we would choose a frequency and it kind of just gives us a count. And in Central Reach, we would much rather choose rate, but for maladaptive behaviors. But it is very cumbersome to record a rate in Central Reach. So we default to the frequency where we're just counting that. We're just doing the count. But rate is the number of responses per unit of time. And the mathematical equation would be count over time. And it's a division problem, and that's how you figure out your rate. A lot of times I like to, when I'm teaching someone about rate, I think about teach them about our pay rate. And that kind of hits home for a lot of people that have been employed and working. You have a certain pay rate and you get paid that rate per hour of work. So that's what rate's all about. It's the count of the behavior over the unit of time. Duration. So this is another method that we is very important that we know about. Duration is the amount of time from the onset to the endpoint of a response. So, I think about several behaviors that we've worked on with our VIPs over the years, from excessive teeth brushing that Nadine worked so hard on, and even tantrum behaviors and tantrum behaviors that behaviors may occur at high rates, it might be hard to count each individual instance of that behavior. So we instead put a duration in place to maybe see how long the tantrum is lasting for, and we look to reduce that duration over time. So we could choose a duration. Like I said, if there's a lot of behaviors occurring all at once, and it's kind of hard to count those in each instance of that behavior. So we may choose duration. Any other examples for duration? What other behaviors might we use duration for?
I'm using it for increasing novel leisure activities, so just the time spent engaging with a new activity.
Yeah, that's a great example, Brittany. Thank you. Yeah, so and we would use this as well um, for behaviors that like a program, group activities, participation in group activities and things like that. We work with a VIP in the community, so participation in community events. We choose duration and we look to increase that over time. So thanks for that example. Exactly right. Any questions about rate or frequency? Or sorry, rate or duration? Okay, latency. Latency is another one. I mean, we don't typically see this a lot of times, but the latency is a measure of the elapsed time between the onset of a stimulus and subsequent response. So the time it takes from the antecedent occurring to when the behavior occurs. I love to give the example here of a fire drill. The fire alarm goes off as the antecedent, and how long before that person engages in leaving the building behavior. That could be an important number to consider when we want someone to vacate the building immediately. So we might want to choose latency for that type of behavior. Any other examples for latency?
Maybe when using like flashcards or sight words, how long it takes for them, the presentation of the card for them to actually say what it is.
Oh yeah, I mean that could be if it's a long latency that might be troublesome. You know, answering questions, some of these social skills we work on could also be latency recording we might choose. Anything else about
Also,
latency? Please.
also, like a client I'm observing right now, it's a behavior he does. It's like from the time that he heats his lunch up to the time he actually eats his lunch. So, he puts it down and it's sitting there and could be a target for other clients and other behaviors, or, just having your food out in the open, germs tend to land on things. So it's like that's trying to have him increase that. So it's something we're going to start working on with him because he'll heat his lunch up and just leave it there.
Well, yeah, another example where we might use latency. Thank you for that, Andy. Anything else about latency? And finally, inner response time, or IRT. And IRT sometimes gets confused with latency, but this time we're not considering an antecedent like latency does. We're considering the time between two consecutive instances of the same behavior. So when we're thinking about inner response time, it's the time between two of the same behaviors. So what kind of behavior might we choose inner response time for?
A repeating behavior, like someone who repeats the same question over and over.
Yeah, I mean that could be a target and that we choose to work on, and we could choose inner response time as a method.
How about measuring the time between somebody taking a bite of food and the beginning of the next, or if they pause for 20 seconds, or
Good
uh,
example. I
mhm.
like that example as well. Like if someone's shoveling food or something like that, and we want to increase the inner response time between taking bites for a safer experience. Yeah, that's a very important behavior that we could be working on in the field. So we might choose inner response time for that.
How about any OCD behaviors?
We could, we could choose inner response time for OCD type behaviors. Um, yeah, absolutely. Good example.
Even like you want to track like self-injury or the time between two different instances of banging their head or hand flapping, anything like that.
Yeah, you could do that as well. And I always, for this behavior or this method, I always think about the behavior of the kid asking to use the bathroom in school. If he's asking over and over and over again every 5 minutes, I mean, that could take away from his learning and those kind of things. So we may want to increase the inner response time. Maybe, and it's not a bad behavior, asking to go to the bathroom, right? That's an appropriate behavior, but it's occurring in excess. So we might want to track the inner response time to see if we could increase the time with, so they don't leave the classroom as often. So great examples, guys. And really these continuous methods, like I said, are the ones to choose if the recorder has the resources able to record. So, hey, we have a technician on the case. They are there. They are working with the VIP one-on-one, or we have a clinician that is there working with the VIP. And we have plenty of resources to record. Well, make sure you're choosing a continuous method. If you are working with family members, other professionals, or working with the DSP, then maybe in a group of 1 to 6 or some kind of ratio like that. The continuous methods may not be the best to choose in those instances because you might be missing instances of a target behavior that you want to record upon. Anything to add or any questions about these continuous methods? Okay. The next set of methods we're going to be using are discontinuous methods, or we call these time sampling. And all of them have to do with time or intervals. And when we think of discontinuous methods, why do we call them discontinuous methods? Someone I haven't heard from.
You're not always observing or recording the behavior.
That's right. Thank you, Jack. Yeah, that we are taking breaks, that all of these methods will allow us to take breaks in recording. So these could be very effective for those individuals that do not have the resources to record reliably, but we're still getting data. We're still collecting data, and how many times have we been out working with family members in the field and they don't provide us reliable data? We go there and they forget to record, they're not recording. And think about putting interventions in for the data recorder too, just like we would for our VIPs. And what I try to do is make the data recording method really easy to do, right? Make it as easy as possible for the recorder. When you make something easier, more simple, that person's much more likely to engage in the behavior that we're asking them to do. For giving them blank ABC forms, could be very challenging for a new person in the ABA field and those kind of things to fill out. And sometimes we do not get reliable recording from those people. So my lesson for you guys is to make your data recording method as easy as possible. And you could talk to a BCBA and supervision about some strategies or ideas to make that happen. But the discontinuous methods are those we choose when the person does not have the resources to record. So we are going to use these time sampling, and time sampling is an available option in CentralReach to use as well. So let's get into the discontinuous methods. And it's called time sampling in CentralReach. So the first one that we're going to review is whole interval recording. Used to record behaviors to strengthen. So we want to make sure when we choose whole interval recording, we want to make sure that we have a behavior that we want to strengthen, because we want that behavior to occur for the whole interval. And that's how I remember it. I always say the whole interval. That's whole interval recording. So the observation, and all of these are broken into intervals. So the observation period is divided into a series of brief time intervals, and they're equal as well. They're equal brief time intervals. And at the end of each interval, the recorder marks whether the response occurred for the whole interval. So, and this is only for behaviors to strengthen most of the time. So what behavior might we choose for whole interval recording?
Maybe like engaging in an activity at program.
Okay, engaging in an activity at program. It could be. And we want this behavior to occur for the whole interval. And if it does, if our VIP does engage in this activity for the whole interval, we're going to put a yes on our data recording sheet in the proper interval, the proper time section. But if the VIP stops engaging in that activity at program, even for a brief instant, we're going to mark no on our data recording sheet, that VIP did not engage in that behavior for the whole interval. And then the recorder can take a break. The recorder stops recording until the new interval starts or the new interval begins. So do you guys see how this discontinuous method offers a break if the VIP stops engaging in the behavior we'd like to see? The other example, it's in like the classroom. We see during class, we want the student to be sitting at their desk, actively engaged. And we want that to occur for the whole interval. We want that VIP and that student to sit at their desk for the whole interval and not get up and run around the classroom or something like that. So whole interval recording might be the way to go with those types of behaviors. Anything else about whole interval recording?
I have something.
Please.
I have a client where he's used to his living room, so we try to like have him tolerate his bedroom or another area of the house. So we have that as like a toleration time for 15 minutes. Would that count as that?
Well, it sounds like you have like a goal of this person tolerating a new environment for 15 minutes.
Yeah, 10 or 15 minutes. It depends.
I mean, that sounds like a duration recording, but you can easily change that to whole interval as well. I mean, that's absolutely something that could be recorded with whole interval as well. But if you guys are using duration, that's obviously a much better method to be using. Think about how the whole interval recording, if we don't know if the person stopped the behavior for a moment, or if the person didn't engage in the behavior for the whole interval, So you see how unreliable the information that it provides is. On the other hand, duration tells us exactly how long the person engaged in that behavior, right? I hope that made sense.
Thanks,
Right.
Mike.
Partial interval recording. My pleasure. Partial interval recording. So this is very similar, but we want to make sure we choose partial interval because for behaviors to weaken, for maladaptive behaviors that we are trying to weaken and zero out. The observation period is divided into a series of brief time intervals. So the same exact thing we're doing with whole interval. And these intervals need to be equal to each other. At the end of the interval, the recorder marks whether the response occurred at any time during the interval. So if we have a challenging behavior like we're working on with a VIP, that's what? Give me one.
Give you an example of what, Mike?
Of a maladaptive behavior.
Flipping tables,
Aggression.
throwing cups.
Okay, throwing cups. So we have this target behavior identified, throwing cups. So we choose partial interval recording. So we're splitting the session up into equal time intervals, and we're recording in each interval if the VIP threw a cup. If the VIP threw a cup one time in the interval, we're going to mark yes, that it happened during that interval. And we're finished recording until the next interval comes up. So if we see one instance of this behavior, we could put a yes, and then we could take a break from recording, or the recorder could take a break from recording until the next interval occurs. So very similar to whole. And the word I think about with partial is part. If the behavior occurs at any part of the interval, we're going to mark a yes. And then we're done recording until the next interval begins. Any questions about whole or partial interval recording? Or why we would choose one over the other, or anything about these two? Okay. Finally, we're going to review momentary time sampling. And I like to think of this one as a moment in time. So momentary time sampling, the observer records if the behavior is occurring at the end of the interval. So basically we're going to, and this is for someone that really doesn't have any resources to record, really, because we're going to split the time into equal intervals, the same as everything else, the same as all the other interval recording methods. But this time we're just going to, at the end of the interval, we're going to look at that person and see if they're engaged in the target behavior or not. So tell me a behavior we might choose for momentary time sampling.
If they're on task doing homework.
Okay, if they're on task doing homework. So, and this is a teacher in the classroom with 30 other students. And we're going to ask the teacher to do a momentary time sampling. We could set a little alarm in their pocket or their phone to go off at the end of each interval. We could teach them to do that so that when the alarm goes off, that teacher is going to look at that student and see in that moment, is the student engaged in doing homework? If the student is, they're going to mark a yes on their data recording sheet. And if they are not, we're going to mark a no on our data sheet. And then we continue, we could get back to our other responsibilities until the end of the next interval. And what I like to think about this one that really jogs my memory is moment in time, momentary time sampling. We're looking at that moment to see if that person's engaging in the target behavior. In this case, it was doing homework. Any questions about these methods? So when we're graphing this, what number do you think appears on our graph? It might not be super obvious.
For momentary time sampling, just would it just
For
be
all three of them.
Would it be a percentage?
It would be a percentage, and it would be the percentage of intervals that this behavior occurred in compared to the total.
So let's say there was 100 behaviors, there was 50 intervals, So there would be two then? Wait, no, that doesn't make sense. So 100
I was
intervals.
like, that blew my mind, man. I was like,
Yeah, no, I
whoa.
make it more simple. So really, you just figure out how many times it happened in each interval.
It's
So
more like a percentage of like the day. Like I use this recording for BFs repeating.
Hmm.
So we're really just looking at what percentage of the intervals, like each half hour of the day is an interval. So
Hmm.
what percentage of those intervals available was he engaging in the behavior?
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
yeah.
Fair enough.
So if we have 10 intervals for the day and we're using partial interval recording for a challenging behavior, and we recognize that they occurred in 5 of the 10 intervals, what number would appear on our graph for the day?
50%.
50%, right? So that's exactly right. The total number of intervals compared to the intervals that we have a yes in. So that percentage is the number that's going to appear on our graph. Percentage of intervals that this behavior happen in, depending on which interval method you are choosing. Any questions about discontinuous methods before we move on? There's derivative measures, and this is something that we use a lot for our skill acquisition behaviors. The proportion of observation intervals where the behavior occurred in. So we have these trials we're running, and we're going to attempt to work on maybe manding, and we have these trials going on. There's an opportunity. We notice that EO's in place, right? Where that establishing operation, where that person has a desire for an item or an activity, and we prompt them to man, or we prompt this functional communication skill, and they do. So we're going to part a yes, that trial was successful, or we're going to put no, that trial was not successful. And the same idea on our graph, we're going to have a percentage, and it's going to show the percentage of opportunities where this behavior was properly engaged in. And we use this for mainly all of our skill acquisition behaviors, where we're trying to create an opportunity or capture an opportunity to practice this behavior. And then also trials to criterion, which is an important method as well to consider. It's a measure of the number of response opportunities needed to achieve a predetermined level of performance. The example in the Cooper book, I think, talks about tying shoes. And we have a certain amount of trials that we would want this person to engage in before they achieve the predetermined level of performance. So we have a bunch of trials going on, and we're recording each one. Trials to criterion. Does anyone have a better example? I explained that very poorly. Does anyone have a better example they could share with the class?
So for the percentage of opportunities, back when one of our clients, our buddy CH, it's like appropriate interaction. We'd pick a between the hour, we'd see if he, displayed that behavior or not.
Yeah, exactly right. So we're noticing when he does engage in that behavior, and we're also noticing times he is not being appropriate, maybe cursing or yelling or anything like that, and we would mark a no on that for that trial. Absolutely right. And remember, guys, percentage of opportunities is the main thing we choose for skill acquisition behaviors in Central Reach.
Would trials to criterion be like any multi-step task? Is that what that is?
Yeah,
Okay.
it could be. So there's other methods that we're going to talk about. One is a permanent product. So permanent products measuring a behavior after it occurred by observing the effects the behavior produced on the environment. So when would this permanent product be very useful for behaviors that occur where?
In private.
That's right, in private. Sorry, my screen just went blank. Do you guys still see it?
No.
No, it's black now.
That's strange, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Oh, geez. There we go.
So behaviors that occur in private. Thank you. Was that Asma? Thank you, Asma. So behaviors that occur in private might be useful permanent product, and we want to make sure that these behaviors leave a permanent effect on the environment. And what is a behavior that we might record upon that occurs in private?
How many times an individual goes into the restroom or the bedroom for intimacy?
Okay. I'm not going to ask what permanent product we're going to be looking for in that case. Does
Put
anyone?
their clothes
Less
on.
stress.
Is it a brown permanent product
Put
by
their clothes
chance?
on.
Okay, yes. Yes, that's a
Permanent dump.
possibility. I was thinking like ripping clothes or something like that.
Yeah, clothes.
Right. We have VIPs that rip clothing. And this is or sheets. One of our guys at RBL likes to rip his bed sheets. And we don't have to have someone in the room with him all night long doing a continuous method to record upon if he ripped his sheets or not. We could simply go in the morning and see if the sheets are ripped. And if they are, we could bet our bottom dollar that he engaged in that behavior throughout the evening. And the example here in the picture is another good example of a gentleman who is making brooms. It looks like he's making some very nice quality brooms. And as his
We don't have
manager,
your picture.
Mike,
what was that?
we only see the
Oh,
derivative.
what did you say?
Does it say what kind? Oh yeah, never mind.
Oh,
Like
it says
which
my screen
broom?
recording is paused. Hold on. Let me just do this
It
again.
looks like the Zoom is still recording at least.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. Sorry about that. Thanks for letting me know.
Double click to enter full screen mode. There we go. Oh, that's a nice broom.
Oh yeah. Sorry. I wanted to make sure you guys could see the brooms. So here we go. We have the broom maker, and as his manager, I don't need to sit there and watch him make brooms all day long. I could simply go at the end of his shift. I could count how many brooms he made and pay this man accordingly.
Very
Another
nice.
method is think about like if you have children at home, time to brush your teeth, time to take a shower. They said, what do they say?
Was the toothbrush wet?
Yeah. Well, that's what we're checking. But they tell us, well, I already did that. I already brushed, Mom. Well, the toothbrush was dry.
Why is the tub not wet and your hair's still greasy?
Yeah.
That's lies.
Why is there no shampoo used after several months?
The line I marked is still the same.
Exactly right. So these are permanent product recordings, and especially ones in the bathroom, right? We don't have to be in there to count each instance of the behavior. We can use these permanent product recordings as a method to respect our clients' rights for privacy, while also tracking if behaviors occurred or not. But you want to make sure there's not other reasons why there could be a change in the environment. We could suspect the behavior happened if another person engaged in the behavior, or if other natural reasons cause the environment to change as well. So we want to make sure that the behavior we choose for this can only be caused by the behavior we're interested in recording upon, and not other reasons why. Permanent product. Any questions about permanent products? Okay. We have definitional measures. We have topography, the physical form or shape of the behavior. And, when we're writing our definition, a lot of times we include the topography or what the behavior actually looks like. And sometimes the topography, we care more about what the behavior looks like than actually the function behind the behavior. I know that's crazy because we're all about the function of behavior, but sometimes we're interested in what the behavior looks like. And I included a picture of my favorite basketball player, Shaq. And Shaq was really bad at shooting free throws. That was he was notoriously bad at it. So what would his coach really want him to practice?
Free throws.
Free throws by doing what? By practicing his
form.
Form, yes, thank you. By practicing his form, lining up the right way, squaring his shoulders to the basket, holding the ball a certain way, releasing it a certain way. So we care more about the look of the behavior or how it's actually being done than the function behind it. Another example of a topography could be riding a bike, that you need to have a certain form, that we're interested in pedaling, moving forward, balancing yourself. So we really care about the way the behavior looks rather than the function. So when we're teaching some of these skills, we care more about the form or what the behavior looks like. Can anyone give me another example of when topography, we care more about the form than the function?
Like holding a pencil to write.
Yeah, holding a pencil to write. Thank you, Sue. Yeah, so holding a pencil, right? And I'm notoriously bad, as people that have worked with me with my penmanship. Really terrible. I'm embarrassed to write anything. But the teachers really tried to make sure that I held my pencil the right way. I was sitting up in my chair the right way, and all those kind of tactics to help improve my penmanship. So that could be a very good one to use, the physical form or shape of the behavior. And magnitude is another one. And we have this in our FBA results section, where we're interested in the force or intensity of a response. And in our FBA section, in our FBA results section more specifically, we have a magnitude, or I think we call it intensity on our FBA results form now. And we're looking at, and in that section, we're writing what? Mild, moderate, or severe. So we're interested in the force or intensity of a response. And I included, even though stars can't have behaviors because they're not living organisms, that is how some stars are, I think all stars are classified based on their magnitude. So I thought it was kind of cool, and I'm big into space. So I thought that was a cool thing to talk about here about magnitude is how stars are classified based on their magnitude.
I have better stars.
You do. And Joanne, you are a star as well.
Thank you.
So there you have it. Any questions about topography or magnitude? So that is the training this morning. There is one more document that I'd like to share with you guys, if I could just bring it up quick. And it's a flow chart. And then we're going to conclude our meeting today. And this is something that Brandon recently shared with us. Do you remember, Brandon?
Thanks, Brandon.
I will find out here soon.
Yes, you will. As soon as my computer loads it.
Mm.
Here we go. And I'll post this to the chat for everyone's reference as well. Let me just share my screen again. So in this article, written by Brandon's favorite, Linda LeBlanc, it's a proposed model for selecting measurement procedures for the assessment and treatment of problem behaviors. So if we're ever in a situation where we are having trouble selecting what measurement procedure to use for a certain behavior, well, there's a nice article here that kind of gets into event recording duration, latency, and kind of talks about the description of each, the resulting measures, and the strengths and limitations of each of these recording methods. And if you scroll down to the bottom, you can use this flow chart here. And you could go through this flow chart, and it's going to lead you to different recording methods. And this is for problem behaviors. So is the problem behavior observable? And look, if you said no, does the behavior produce a measurable physical change in the environment? And if it does, we can choose permanent product recording. And as we go down here, we have partial interval recording, we have momentary time sampling, and look, it's kind of what we talked about. Are observers' resources sufficient to continuously monitor problem behavior? Well, yes, we might choose a partial interval recording, or no, we don't have the resources, so we choose a momentary time sampling or moment in time. So this could be a great resource for you guys to not only read this article, but also to pull out this flow chart when you need it if you're having trouble deciding exactly what the best recording method would be for a problem behavior. So I'm going to share this in our chat. Does anyone have any final comments, questions about measurement?
No.
All right, guys, this training is recorded. It will be posted to YouTube for your reference moving forward. And of course, we're always available to answer any questions you may have about measurement or anything ABA. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We'd be happy to help, and we'll see you in supervision group. Thanks a lot for all your hard work. Have a good day.
You're the man,
You
Mike.
too. Have a good day.
Thank you.
See you guys.